Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee, who've been with us from day one, thankfully, hence all the good content you guys are getting. Remember to go grab yours. Anyway, big thank you also to Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker, for his amazing contribution of time and music for the intro and outro. He is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, dark wave, electronic music. So you got a little drawl going on there. Dr. Snick's music is available everywhere where good music is found. Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, you name it, it's there. So go and check him out tonight. We welcome back Reverend Peter Panagore, and he's going to be picking up basically where he left off on his last segment in December, discussing his very extraordinary NDE experience. So you have to sit tight for that. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, we are on all 8 of our usual platforms, which are, let me peck them all off for you, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, UFO Paranormal Radio, Facebook, UFO Paranormal Radio, United Public Radio, Outer Realm, of course, News on the Flip Side, Joe Montaldo, UFO Undercover, and of course, Canada's Most Haunted, Michelle DeRoche, being moi. So go and check that out. While you're there, subscribe to everything. Just like freaking like everything up, join it. And if you see it and there's something to freaking join, do it. This seems to be going into
look for your invitations to
gosh dang it.
To the new one.
There we go. So a lot of people chiming in. Wayne, Jessica, Bradley, Adriana, Janie. Holy crap, this is great.
Hi, everybody in Romper Room.
I know. Did you say romper room? Just like, wow, kids are home. Kids are home. All right.
Just aged myself.
Yeah, and me. Thanks for that.
You didn't have to say anything. You just went
yourself, man. Go ahead.
Yeah. See, because it's that one stupid brain thing. So sometimes it goes the wrong direction.
I know. It can be pretty frightening.
Especially if she's following me.
Oh my God. Scary.
No filter.
Oh gosh. So I am going to be sending the link off to Peter shortly. Do you want to go over his bio?
Yes. I just have it on my phone because
where's the magic mirror? I don't know, Wayne.
I don't have
with the big 7 foot by 4 foot by 4 inch.
It's right here.
But when you have to strap in and bring it on your back, that magic mirror? I don't know.
I have 3. It's right here. The mirror. Wow. Yes, I just have it. Sorry, I'm under the weather, so like today is just crazy. But I'm here. Reverend Peter Panagore, and I want to call him Panagore, you know that.
Of course
was,
you do.
I have to. Yeah. You know, it was recruited to TV as the 5th minister of America's oldest religious broadcast. Peter's 2-minute spot aired for 15 years just before the morning weather on NewsCenterMaine on 2 NBC stations, reaching 80,000 viewers a day. Previously, Peter served in New England as a United Church of Christ minister. His Audible Best Seller, Heaven is Beautiful, has been optioned for a film. His first book, 2 Minutes for God, is a non-denominal devotional drawn from his 1,700 TV stories. That's right, 1,700 TV stories. He's working on his 3rd book, built around his talk, and provides mentoring to spiritual seekers worldwide.
Oh, well, so we'll just wait for him to chime in. I know the
Sure.
last show did really well, and I had really got a lot of good feedback on it, just because his NDE was like pretty extraordinary. What
Yeah.
a story! And God, that was quick. There he is. Hello, how are you?
Hi. How are you,
Hi,
Peter?
Michelle. Hi,
How are
Amelia.
you?
Thank you. I'm well,
Hi.
thank you. How you?
Good.
Good, good. We were just talking about all the amazing feedback we got from the last show because people were so touched by your experience. So I thought, wow, that was really great. We knew pretty early on that you had to come back. So
Thanks for having
um,
me.
oh,
Oh, thank you for
our
being here.
pleasure. Yes, our pleasure. Where I think we should start, but I'm
Oh,
not the
this is
guest.
your show. I want to hear what you want.
No, technically, we always sort of make it about our guests being like, it's your show for a couple of hours. We just chime in every now and then. So, you know, but I'd like to recap a little bit just for those who couldn't tune in and who had questions that maybe we didn't get to. And it gives them the opportunity to sort of come back in and do that. And then we can go from there.
Okay,
Perfect.
sounds good. Hey,
Stage is yours.
can I ask you before we begin? Can you hear the frogs?
Can we hear the
Yes.
frogs?
Yes.
Okay, I can't turn them down. I've got
That's
them
okay.
as contained as I can. I live in a.
No, it's okay.
That's
Okay.
okay. We like the frogs.
I had to tap in to hear it though, because you had to tell me. I didn't know.
That's
Okay, good.
good.
I
That's
have a
good.
cold. I can't hear anything.
She's fuzzy headed. Don't worry.
Fuzzy,
She'll
oh,
keep
yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Stage is yours.
Well, thanks for having me here tonight. And
Pleasure.
so I'm going to give you a quick recap on what happened, maybe 20 minutes or so or less.
Yeah. no
Back in
problem.
1980, I was a college student, and I didn't want to go back to my family's home in Boston for spring break. And so I found a fellow who could go ice climbing with me and snow caving. And just to let the new listeners know, this is not the first time I was winter camping. I'd been a winter guy my whole life, and a
Oh.
lot of climbing, a lot of backpacking, a lot of skiing, a lot of outdoor stuff, hockey, all that kind of stuff. So I'm a winter guy, and I'd been snow caving, never, but I'd been backcountry skiing. And
You sound like me. Never. And the one time you go.
right, I know. It's like, but the snow caving part was really great. We had some troubles, but it was really great. The ice climbing part, the 1 day ice climbing part, that was really what the problem was. And I had never ice climbed before. I'd done a lot of technical climbing, but ice climbing is a little different. Is for one thing, it's really, really cold out, and that's the largest danger that there is. That and falling ice, but it's actually a pretty safe sport. You hardly ever read about anybody falling or dying from ice climbing, unless it makes like international news. They're lost on Kilimanjaro or something.
Yeah, I could see somebody dying ice climbing though.
Well,
Especially if the
It's
icicles are
geez.
like,
The fact that it doesn't happen more, we don't hear about it, is amazing to me.
maybe
So,
people don't know that their people are out there, because I mean,
yeah.
you think of how many people have died from icicles on their own eavesdrough at home.
well, that
From
is totally
icicles
true.
falling in the spring. Yeah.
Yep, that's totally true. We knock all the icicles down where I live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're near the door. So I made a mistake to begin with. I climbed with an axe and I climbed with a hammer, and a hammer is significantly smaller than an axe. And what that means is, well, what it means is that I made a huge mistake, because you're
Right.
supposed to have two axes. And if you use two axes, they have straps on them so that you don't drop them. So you can dangle it down, and you don't,
Yeah.
because you don't want to lose your axe when you're climbing. But the other thing about the strap is you can set the axe in the ice and then let go of the axe and just kind of spread your hand and dangle on it to rest your muscles. But you can't do that with a hammer. The hammer, you've got to grip it the entire time, because the strap is at the bottom. And although you can't drop it because it has a strap on it, you can't rest. And because I couldn't rest my forearms, they got burned out really fast. And so there was a 500 or 600 foot climb, and it was pretty apparent shortly after we began that I was going to be climbing slower than everybody else. There were other teams on the ice. So I made this ascent. It took me longer than everybody else. My partner, who's a certified ice lead climber, by the time we got to the top of the climb, the sun was setting and all the other teams were leaving. Now, this was a bad scenario because we are a day's drive from the Arctic Circle. And it's March, and there's 10 feet of snow on the ground. I'm in Western Canada in the Rocky Mountains. It's very, very cold as soon as the sun goes down. We
Yeah.
didn't have extra water or food or anything to keep us warm because nobody did. I mean, this is nobody carried that up because it's a day climb. And so we were immediately in trouble. Sun goes down, hypothermia sets in. I'm telling this really rapidly. What I'm not conveying to very clearly is the terror of the situation.
Yeah, and please do that. You're not at any time limit. You're welcome to.
Okay, because
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
terrifying. We knew. Okay, let me set up the scene a little bit. I'd been on the National Ski Patrol force since I was a sophomore in high school, and I was working at this particular mountain in Bozeman, Montana this year as a volunteer. And because it was so cold, I got retrained in hypothermia and frostbite. So this is like in the top of my.
Oh, Montana, yeah.
I knew exactly what was going on, and I knew I can look down. It's 500 or 600 feet down. There's about a 10,000-foot mountain above us. We're on a ledge. And we have to traverse in the dark and rappel down in the dark 3 rappels in order to save ourselves. And it's a long way down, and it's a very difficult thing to do. And so we didn't panic. We were both very level-headed, but the terror that built through the night was traumatic in such a way that I didn't get over it till 2016 when I went back to the same place and faced my fears. It wasn't. I wasn't. I've never been afraid of dying ever since I died. But I had terror that was, when you have trauma, it sets inside of you and it kind of camps there and it stays there and
Bastards.
Oh yeah, exactly, and it kind of filters everything.
Yeah.
So here we are now. Now to get a little background, we're sitting on the ledge. Tim hauls up the rope. It's about a 300-foot rope, you climb with a double line. So we have a lot of extra line to make sure that we had enough line to make each pitch. So it's like 300 feet. It ends up in this huge knot. Sun goes down, temperature drops. Immediately, every single muscle in my body starts to twitch independently. And I like to describe it as all of my muscles are independent pistons, and they're all firing at their own rate. And so my whole body is this huge mass of uncontrollable quivering muscles with a clattering jaw. And I had to take off my gloves to untie this 300-foot knot in the dark and started getting frostbite immediately. And Tim and I were level-headed enough to recognize the situation that we were in, and we knew that we were going to die. It was clear to us that death was what was going to happen, and either we were going to die where we were, trying to stay warm by cuddling together, or we were going to die trying to get off the mountain. And we decided that we were going to try to get off the mountain, even though it was dark.
Right. Which is really risky on your part, especially when you're barely, hanging on.
Well, and it got worse through the night because as hypothermia advances, your brain freezes. The brain begins to stop functioning well, and we started making poor decisions. And we lose coordination. That's another thing that happens. You can't really control your body anymore. First of all, it's shivering like this, and you're trying to walk, and you're losing your coordination, and your eyeballs freeze, and your lips freeze, and your fingers freeze, and your feet become blocks of ice. My feet became blocks of ice. I'm putting this in the second person, but really, I'm talking about me.
Right.
So we untangle this rope. We decide that we have to get down. So we rope off with each other so that if one falls, the other one can maybe save them. And we traverse in the dark across this ledge, and we get to the first rappel, and we make a mistake because our brains aren't functioning well. Instead of doing what we should do, which was to take the rope and not put it directly around the tree for the rappel, but to put a piece of webbing around the tree and then run the rope through the webbing, because then you could pull it down right through the nylon to nylon. We didn't do that. So by the time we reached the bottom of the next rappel, the rope had frozen to the tree. And what that meant was that we couldn't get it loose. And so now we're 150 feet down from where we were, and the snow is up to our knees, and we lost our coordination. We were losing our ability to think, and the rope froze to the tree. And with both of our weight pulling on the rope, we couldn't get it free. And this is hours. So we're hours into this now. And we had a decision. We made a decision early on that we would only talk as minimally as possible, because every word that we spoke dropped our energy meter, because we didn't have any food. We didn't have any water. We could eat snow, but we did eat some snow, but it's not enough to sustain you. So we just kept declining and declining and declining, and our decision-making got worse and worse and worse. And so Tim decided to reascend the rope, like up the rope, in order to get it free. He used these particular kind of hitches called Persic hitches, which are they're like knots, bends, and hitches are things you make with ropes.
Right.
And hitches are based on friction. So if you ever tied up a boat at a dock, it's a hitch, because the line is always pulling against the boat and the line are always pulling against the dock, so it doesn't come undone. The same thing works with this Persic hitch. And you tie one around one side of the rope, because this big loop. You tie the other one on the other side with these long loops, so that you can put a foot in one and a foot in the other and hold on to the hitches. And I wrapped the main line around my waist, and I made it as taut as possible to go vertically. And Tim began to ascend back up the rope without any protection, no safety lines, because there weren't any. So he got up maybe 10 or 20 feet, and the rope came free, and he fell down, and he landed in the snow, and he didn't get hurt, but the rope came free. I'm telling this very rapidly.
That's okay. At your pace.
Slow down. You have time. It's all yours.
Me too.
Okay.
Me too.
All right. And the reason why I said that is because all sorts of other things happened. Like every step that we took in the snow, we would fall. The snow's deep. Okay. So it's hard to walk in the snow, but I've walked in a lot of snow in my life. But when you lose your coordination, you can't keep yourself up. And so we're not only on this ledge, we're not able to stay standing very well whenever anything kind of gets in our way. So we're falling over, we get the rope down. And at this point in the night, so this is hours and hours into it, the hyperthermia has advanced. Our brains are freezing. It's hard to move our lips. Our lips are frozen. Eyeballs, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but eyeballs freeze. And our eyeballs you can feel the cold inside your eye.
Yeah,
and
that stuck mold,
Yeah.
like it almost feels dry, and you
Kind
can't
of feeling
move.
it.
Yeah.
Talking about it's like God's. I don't even want to say it, but get the drops.
I can't feel it, but,
Yeah.
so we're in this situation on this ledge, one rappel down, and a car drives by. So we're in the middle of Canada, in the middle of Western Canada. Nobody lives in this place. It's a provincial park, and a car drives by, and it just drives by. About half an hour later, a truck pulls down and pulls into the parking lot right across the street. So it's the Icefields Parkway. There's the Saskatchewan River. There's a parking lot. There's the Icefields Parkway, and then there's the walk into the climb. And it's not that far. And this pickup truck, we can see the headlights pull into the parking lot and turns around. And by now the moon had come up, so we have like a 3/4 moon. We can see in the dark a little bit better, and we think, oh my God, it's the warden. Because the night before, we had driven up to Jasper, which is further north, and bought a bunch of food. And by the time we got back to where we were going to camp, it was way too late and too dark. So we went to the warden's cabin, and we made a deal with him that if we cooked him dinner, he'd let us bunk in his place overnight.
Oh, a real
So we
Canadian.
cooked him. It was like, we made this deal. So,
Yeah.
so we cooked him dinner, and we cleaned up, and he let us bunk. And the next morning, we signed into the log. Because whenever you go into a wilderness area anywhere, at least in North America, you sign in, you say where you're going, and you say when you're coming out, so they can find you in case something happens.
Right.
Yeah.
So we didn't sign out. So he came looking for us at some point after dark.
Yeah.
And so he flashes his lights. We jump up and down. We wave our arms. He flashes the lights. We know that he can see us. We're heartened by this. Like, oh my God, he knows we're here. We're not alone.
Hope.
We got hope. We got some more, oomph going for us. But meanwhile, the hyperthermia keeps advancing. We're still in a very difficult situation. And every step we take, our energy meter goes down. So we're always fighting against this How much energy do we have before we die? Can we? How do we expend that energy so we don't die before we run out of energy? It was this, and plus we're driving ourselves forward. I had this experience of willpower where I tapped into what I either alternately describe as my early mammalian mind or my reptilian mind, but this deep, deep part of my brain where survival was the only thing that mattered. There was nothing. I became completely empty of everything else but survival. And I know Tim, my partner, climbing partner Tim, was in the same situation. So we drive ourselves with this great force against this impending doom to the next rappel. We get to the next rappel, and this one has an iron pin epoxied into the mountain with a ring on it, and it's in a kind of a craggy, rocky place in a shadow with an angle. So Tim descends down, and we're off the ice. We're on. You can hear the crampons on our feet click against the rock when we descend. Click, 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 click. So we get down. And Tim turns this corner, and he's standing on a ledge that's like the size of a boardroom table. And on the wall in front of him, I mean, it's maybe 4 feet deep, and are more iron pins. There's 2 iron pins epoxy to the mountain with rings, carabiners, straps, and carabiners so you can clip in. So Tim clips in. I come down around the corner behind him, and so I clip into the same thing. So now we're side by side, and for the first time in the night, we're not in danger of falling. But the ranger sees we're in this situation where one rappel up from the bottom, not far from our tent. So he flashes his light and he goes home to bed. We're like, see ya. We're gonna, we're thinking to ourselves, we'll be down in 5 minutes. It's like a 5-minute descent. But the problem is that as soon as I put the carabiner onto my harness, I took the rope that was attached to me. It was through like a figure 8, so it was attached to me, so I could slide with it. And I pull it out. I take one end, I tie it to the carabiner. I take the other end and I toss it out around the corner, so as the corner of the rock kind of turns, and it dangles off, so I can pull it down through that eye ring at the top. And I yank this thing in one pull, not even like 6 inches, just pull it a little bit, and it jammed somewhere up in the dark around the corner, like like there was 2 rocks, and it laid between them, and it just tightened up. And so I gave it a stronger pull, and it just got even tighter. And because of the way that the mountain turned, I couldn't snap the line. You ever snap a line and kind of lift the line up from out of a snag? Well, I couldn't release the snag from around the corner because the rope was lying on the corner. So I couldn't descend back up. And now we know now we are alone. The warden is gone. We're in a worse situation than we've been in all night. The hypothermia continued to advance. It got colder and colder, and to the point where I got hot and zipped my coat, and I opened up my coat to let the heat let the heat out. And I remember thinking that I don't need my arms or feet. I just need my heart and my lungs and my brain, because it felt like all of the blood rushed from my extremities to keep my core warm.
Yeah, right? That's what happens even when you're in the ocean. If you're happen to fall off a cruise ship, just saying.
Somebody you know?
No. No, but I hear it's a good place to go missing.
So I unzip my coat, and I know better because I'm trained not to do this. But part of the problem with hyperthermia is that you become confused. And even though I knew rationally it was a mistake to do that, I didn't care because I was hot. And so I made into this irrational decision. And Tim yelled at me, "Zip up your coat." And I was like, "Yeah, F off. I'm not doing that. I'm too hot." And so I unzipped my coat, and my realization came that I was dying here, that this is it. I was not going to get out of this now. There's no one to rescue us. Nobody knows that we're here. The rope is stuck. We've been climbing now we started climbing early the morning before. So it might've been 15 or 18 hours by this point. It was a really long time. And night, okay, so this is March, and it's in northern Canada. Night is really long and very cold.
Dark for a long time, and it's super, super cold.
Super cold.
Mountains. Wow.
And so I unzip my coat. I think to myself, oh, this is it. I'm gonna die here. And when I started thinking about that, I got a peace came over me. I kind of more like a resignation came over me. I gave up. And when I gave up, I remember looking out at the mountain that was right across the parkway, and it's beautiful. There was 10 million stars in the sky of every single color imaginable. And so much so, and there was so much light from the moon and the stars that we could actually see in color. And so it was just extraordinarily beautiful. And I started thinking about my parents. I started thinking about God. I was raised Catholic and Orthodox, and so I had a religious background, but I was also I was a natural born mystic. I had mystical experiences when I was a kid, and so I had this relationship with the divine. But I regretted the whole situation because my sister, back when I was 14, had run away from home and had vanished from our lives and broke my poor mom for a decade. And because, when someone dies, even a child, you get to grieve and mourn and bury them. But when someone disappears,
there's no closure.
There's no closure.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
No, you don't know. You're always wondering.
Yep. And so, I mean, my mom would stand by the window every night when I was a kid, with the curtain pulled back in the dark in the dining room, looking down the street, crying every night. And we weren't allowed to talk to her about it because every time we talked about it, she cried. So there was like this prohibition from talking about it, but it was always this terror in the house. So, which is why I didn't go home. I didn't want to be in that environment anymore. But so here I am thinking, I'm gonna end up taking another child from my parents. This is the one thing I didn't want to have happen is the thing that is going to happen. And so I start thinking about this, and then I begin to fall asleep. And when I would fall asleep, it was like someone would just flick off the switch. I'd fall asleep. I'd collapse to the rock, smack my head with the helmet, wake up, stand up, pull on the rope until the exhaustion overtook me. And then, like that, I would black out, fall down, get up, pull on the rope. And that process of falling asleep repeated itself. And then I stood up this last time, and as I stood up, I had this peripheral vision, like a black circle around my entire vision. And I'd never seen that before. And it rapidly closed, and I would move with my head because I was looking around with it like, what is this thing going on? And it collapsed like this. And as it got smaller and smaller and smaller, I thought, I'm just going to die very quietly. I'm just going to pass out and be quiet. And when it went to dark, I didn't pass out. It went to dark, and all of my pain stopped, and I was still awake. But I was darkness. I had consciousness, but I couldn't see anything. And I was confused because I didn't understand why I still had consciousness or what was going on or why I didn't have any more pain. And then the darkness sort of expanded in front of me. And this all happened very rapidly. It expanded into an infinite darkness that oddly I could see in the darkness. So it was pitch black, but I could see that it had depth and distance, and way far, far, far in the distance, 10,000 light years away, like a little tiny star appeared, a single star, one little tiny bit of light, and it popped into existence, and then it rushed toward me at faster than the speed of light, covering this entire distance in a moment. And as it came toward me, it expanded and filled my horizon, so everything became the entity itself. And as it came to me, it spoke to me telepathically, non-linguistically, like a download of direct information. And the information was, you're coming with me, I'm taking you. And my response was, no, I'm not going anywhere.
No, I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
I put up
But thank you.
all
Yeah.
of my, because I didn't know what was going on. I was like, what
Right.
is this? I don't know what this is, but I'm not going anywhere.
You know,
Right.
you're
So
going into the empty, like on Supernatural.
yeah, I
Just
was
that
going to do that.
black, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I put up all my willpower because I had developed this incredible willpower through the night, driving myself forward. I have never in my life ever gotten to the level of the drive that I had that night. I have like this excess drive in my life now. One of the side effects of this whole thing is that I have all of this willpower to drive myself forward. And
Yeah.
so I took all of that willpower and I put it up like a shield, like, and when I put up this shield, it reached through as if it was non-existent, like just took me. And as it took me, I was still resistant, but as soon as it engulfed me, it pulled me inside itself, and it was like this extraordinarily large entity of light. And it was communicating to me. And as soon as I was inside of it, like a rag doll, but I wasn't a physical body anymore. And people talk about the silver cord. I've had experience with the silver cord before that connects the body to the soul, and other mystical experiences prior to this. There was no silver cord here. This thing was severed. And I was inside of this entity that was feeding me, speaking to me, love, comfort, compassion, power, like all powerful, and intelligence. Like it knew everything. And I lost all of my capacity for decision making. I had no agency. And I had these 2 points of view of vision. I was inside this entity, this being of light, this angel, and I could see out of my light body's eyes, and I could see through the angel into infinity in every direction. But also I was outside of the angel, outside of myself, and I don't know where I was. I was somehow the darkness itself, but I could see myself inside this entity, this being of light, and I could see the being of light. And so I had these 2 perspectives simultaneously. And I am inside of it, traveling at this phenomenal speed back to where it came from along the same trajectory. And we just fly this incredible speed. And I am just unable to do anything but to absorb the information that's being given to me. And then we get to this edge place. And at this edge place, the angel, this being, it either becomes all of heaven or it melds into part of heaven, but I sort of pop out of it, and it is its essence, because it's this weird thing where it's all power and all intelligence, this angel being, but it's not all powerful and all intelligent, because it's only a portion of this infinity.
Right.
And as big as it is in comparison to me, the infinity is infinite, infinitely powerful. And so I get popped out inside of this darkness, and this darkness extends. It's a deeper darkness than the first darkness I saw, which was, people describe the tunnel. My whole vision was this tunnel. Everything was this darkness. But in this new void, it's illuminated darkness. I'm inside of the body of the divine, and I know that I am myself again. I am no longer Peter. I know that I am and have always been this consciousness. I'm like a huge orb of intellect, my own intellect, my thinking and my feeling and my understanding are all one thing. My seeing is one thing. I can see in every direction at once, but it's not separate from my thinking about seeing. I'm seeing with my thought. Hard to describe. And so I can see in every direction, and I can see deep into this infinity, but I can't see infinity itself. So as far as the distance I can see, it is still further into perfection and the oneness of being into the infinite itself. And it's all illuminated. So it's emptiness and fullness. It's dark and it's light, and it's nothing. There are no things here. It is a place of no thingness. I am not a thing. There's no molecules here. I have no bones. I have no brain. There's no structure that I can identify with the reality that we're living in now. But I know that this is me, and
Right.
this has always been me. And so I am this content entity with I'm just content. I'm not afraid at all. I'm
Mhm.
home. I'm myself. And as I'm floating in this ocean, this infinite ocean of divine self, a portal opens in front of me, like a white shimmering. I've been describing it these days as a waterfall, like a doorway opens, but it's this
Mhm.
fluid, and it's 10 million colors. It's all the stars, all the colors of all of the stars in the sky, and a million more. And it's only white. It's both of these things at the same time. It's all
Wow.
color and it's
Mhm.
white, and I can see its surface. It's shimmering. It's like it has a solidity to it, but
Mhm.
it's translucent to me because I can see that it's a depth, and then it's transparent because I can see through it. And as I see through it, I see that there's a much longer tunnel there. And this light, it has gives me a compulsion.
Mhm.
It is the most beautiful beauty I have ever seen anywhere ever, and I just want to touch it. And so I reached with my consciousness to touch this light, and it flowed into me. And as it
Mhm.
flowed into me, all of these things happened at once
Mhm.
in timelessness. So
Right.
I describe it, I tell the story with purpose, sometimes in one chronology and sometimes in another chronology, because timelessness has no beginning and no end, has no front and no back.
Mhm.
And so this flows into me. And as it flows into me, I know that I am known. I know that there is no part of my human life or my soul life that is unknown. I am naked in front of the divine being. And this divine being has no form, it has no gender, it has no religion, it has only intellect, beauty, love, compassion, knowledge, and it sees through me, and it's terrifying to have
Mhm.
no places of hiding. I am so seen that I experience all of the pain that I gave away in my entire life to everybody in a sequence. And
Oof.
and I knew that the divine had lived inside of me. I knew that the divine in my human life had witnessed, not like I'm watching Peter and taking notes over here, but like inside of me experiencing every decision that I made.
Mhm.
And so I made all these decisions that caused people pain. But I wasn't a terrible person. I was just, 21-year-old guy who's, I was a good time guy. I liked having
Mhm.
fun, and I did some bad stuff.
Mhm.
And I did some good stuff, but
It's all
It's
part of your
part of
journey, though.
it's part of your
Yeah.
journey. It's part of life.
it's part
Yeah.
of life. And so,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
experienced all of the pain that I gave away to every single person in my life up to that point, from my childhood on, but
Ouch.
from inside of their experience. So
Mm.
I was inside of them in the same way that the divine experienced my life. The divine is experiencing everybody's life. And so I'm now inside of, and I'm going to pick on my sister. I'm inside of my sister, who is my best friend.
Aw.
She was my best friend, but you hurt the ones you love, and so she was the one I hurt the most in my life. And so anytime that I was angry at her and I caused her pain, I was inside of her experience, feeling the pain that I caused her, but more than just the pain that I caused, bumper on
Mhm.
the nose or something,
Right.
or wrestler or whatever I was doing, or say
Mhm.
hurtful words or whatever it was. I experienced her emotional response to it, all the chemical emotions, all of their thinking, all of her wounds. And it turned out that all of the wounds that I gave away were ginormous in comparison to what I thought they were. So I had this dual vision for the entire thing. I had my perspective, all of my reasoning for causing all the pain to all these people in sequence, and then I had to experience all of their pain that I gave them in sequence from their point of view. And this happened from beginning of my life up to the point in which I died, and it was tremendously painful, because it turned out that all of the pain that I gave away in life, I had actually given to myself. and I suffered all of this pain that I gave away, and I judged myself. So I went through a judgment, but the divine didn't judge me. The
Right.
divine, meanwhile, I'm in the presence. I'm in heaven. Okay, for lack of a term, but the heaven is the body of the divine itself, and then the divine is right next to me, but I can't see it. But it's right next to me, and it's speaking next to me, and it's speaking inside of me, and it's saying, "I know you. I love you. I've always known you. I have loved you as you were in every moment that you loved people and every moment that you hurt people. I have loved you no matter what. I love you. I love you. I love you. I
So it's
forgive you
unconditional love in its truest
completely."
form,
And
basically.
I had to turn and accept it.
Mm.
I had to hear it. And so as I'm going through this unconditional forgiveness, I judge myself because I see my imperfection, I see my impurity, I see my limitation compared to perfection, unlimitedness, and the fullness of love. So my comparison, I'm not judged, but I judge myself in comparison to perfection. And
Mhm.
also simultaneously, I see all of humanity. I see everybody who's alive, everybody who is alive. I see that I am exactly the same as them.
Mm.
That my actions in the world as a human being were no better or no worse than anybody else's. Anybody else's.
Mhm.
In comparison to the ultimate unlimited perfection. All of us fall short of the divine will, right?
Mhm.
But the divine was speaking inside me saying, "It's not your fault. I designed it this way.
Right. This is your
I
path.
made this.
Yeah.
You're just living in it. I love you as you are. You're part of my creation. And all
Mhm.
I needed to do was to listen to the voice of love through the ear of my heart,
Mhm.
which is a metaphor here. Because all of the love that I'd given away in my life and all the
Mhm.
love that had been given to me in my human life became my capacity to hear the voice speaking to me. I love you. I know you. I made you." And
Right.
when I heard that, I I I turned toward it, and I described this experience as the purgative fire of divine love. So there's
Mhm.
a purgation, there's a cleansing of me. I couldn't bring all of these human aspects of my life prevented me from entering into the fullness of the divine love. And
Mhm.
once those were burned away from me,
Mm.
I I was I could hear the divine voice offering forgiveness and love and mercy and kindness and charity and beauty and hope, and all I had to do was listen to it. And as soon as
Mhm.
I listened to it, I became infilled with it. Once I heard it, I was infilled with it, and I expanded into this much larger being of light as it poured inside me. Once I accepted its love, uh, of beauty, knowledge, understanding, bliss, paradise, awe, um, joy, knowledge,
Mhm.
all these things that we separate in human life, all the goodness,
Mhm.
healing, wholeness, all were one thing and expanded me into uh, so large of a capacity where I was only in adoration, a state of worship, adoration
Mhm. Mm.
of the beauty of the divine itself, that any more that would have entered into me, I would have obliterated. It felt like I would have folded back into the divine self and no longer been a separate entity. And
Mhm.
meanwhile, I also saw the origin of myself. I could hear the name of that called my soul into being, not
Mm.
which birthed me as a Peter, but bore my consciousness into existence eons and eons and eons ago. And I saw myself, I describe it as like a photon
Mm.
that superpositions. It's a wave and a particle, and it's also inside the divine self and outside the divine self. It's made of the divine self and separate from the divine self. It's made of the same substance, and yet it's less than. And I saw the expanse of my soul over eons, how
Mm.
large I am and all of the lives that I had lived, which were
Mhm.
teeny tiny compared to the size of my consciousness. And
Mhm.
I saw into a couple of my previous lives.
Right.
Not sure where one of them was and what reality it was. It wasn't here. I don't know
Mhm.
where it was, but it wasn't Earth. And I could understand that I had an eternal nature.
Mhm.
And then I kind of contracted. And when I contracted, I said, "Am I dead?" And the voice said, "Yes, you're dead." And I said, "Well, I can't die now." And the voice said, "Well, it's your time to die. Come home. But why don't you want to die now?" And I said, "Because my sister had vanished and my parents were broken and I didn't want to take another child." And as soon as I said that, and this is
You
all
were back.
telepathic and no
Yeah.
language, I
Mhm.
got swept across heaven to the
Right.
edge of creation where our universe begins, and my head gets poked out through it,
Mhm.
but I don't have a head. Okay, this is metaphorical. I can
Yes, yes.
see into the
Yep.
universe. I can see all the galaxies. I see down to our galaxy, down to our solar system, down to our Earth, and I can see 7 billion people in live time doing 7 billion things. I mean, these aren't imaginary people. These are
Mhm.
actual people living, doing there's wars going on, there's ships being launched, there's babies being born, there's people
Oh,
dying,
wow.
there's murder and
Mhm.
there's rape and there's beauty and there's ugly. Everything is going on. The whole world is, and I can see all of it all at once.
Mhm.
And inside of every human being, there is a divine golden light. And that golden light is invisible to everybody. There is a foam that covers the entire planet, and it's in between people. And whether they're making love to each other or killing each other, they can't fully see this light. It's
And you can't
obscured.
extinguish it.
No,
It's
and they
there.
can't. It's there. It's who
Yeah.
they are.
I just before we get too ahead, because I want to address some of the comments because it pertains to what you were saying,
Sure.
Amelia. This is Jay from Austria. Thank goodness.
Hello, JH. A
Okay.
friend of mine, my neighbor, had an accident and he was in hell. Yes, a near death experience. What he saw was extreme only because everyone only ever sees the light. Believe me, he and more said hell exists.
And then I'm going to continue on because it says,
They saw people actually burning
and
and they
lastly,
never did anything bad.
that's
I
interesting.
have a comment for that, but I'm going to wait.
Yeah.
Can I give a comment on it?
Of
Which
course.
is,
And of
You
course you
first, you're the
can. You're
guest.
first.
No,
so
we're going to
the
budge you out of the way.
so I had a long talk with somebody just yesterday who 20 years ago had a hell no death experience and didn't make it into the light, and he actually wasn't a bad person either. I mean,
Mhm.
he's just a person. It really he died, and he got pulled back before he had a chance to continue his path,
Oh,
into the light. But he's lived in the light ever since. So
right.
every
Mhm.
day of his life, he still experiences the divine presence here, even though he didn't experience it there. That's one thing.
Do you
And
think
the
it's like
other
a
thing is that the people I know who've gone through hell, including myself, really all it took was just looking at the light. And that's really all it took, was recognizing the presence of the light and giving up my own selfish attachment to myself.
hmm.
That's
And
what it was, the selflessness when you said, I don't want to leave them without a child. And it
Mhm.
was right there in that moment.
But to even be presented with such a dark place, do you think it could even be something in a past life? Do you carry that karma all the way through?
I don't know
Because
about
you said
that.
you were being presented with lives you didn't know. Like, I
Well,
wonder if it all rolls into one another, you know?
I that wasn't what I experienced.
Yeah.
What I saw was that these other lives that I had lived
Mm.
or was living, because from my point of view, they were all simultaneous. I mean, I
Yeah.
looked, as my
Mm.
consciousness, I got to look inside live time of
Right.
in two of these lives,
Yes.
but they were this big
Right.
in comparison to the largesse of my soul. So
Right.
Mhm.
their influence in comparison to the light of myself, or
Mhm.
their original nature of my being, was insignificant.
Right.
And
Right.
so one of the lessons that I took away from all of this
Mhm.
is that lots of my people, my friends, my peers, are very interested in their past lives and in their
Mhm.
karma. I don't really give a shit. And
Nice.
I
Just
Can I
tell
high
like it is,
five you
Peter.
over here?
Yeah,
We'll just do that right now. Yeah.
because none
I
of them
like
are
it.
me. None of them are
Right.
me, and that I'm not after trying to understand what I once was. I'm trying
Right.
to understand what I actually am, and what I actually am, what I'm trying to open myself up to in my entire life, this lifetime,
Mhm.
is the divine light itself.
Right.
I'm much more interested in the pursuit of the oneness of being and
You
the
want to
light
evolve.
itself, which
And
Yes.
solves everything. It
yes.
doesn't make my troubles go away, but it gives me a ground of being, a ground upon which I can stand in my life that is
Mhm.
full of strength and compassion, kindness and humility. And I'm able to negotiate my world as a result from a
Mhm.
single place.
Right.
Okay. If
Excellent.
I could just give a
Yes.
comment to the health thing. I know that
Mhm.
we had a guest on and we discussed this, and sometimes when people feel that they've seen hell through their NDE, it comes out of fear in what you're manifesting at that moment. It
It could
doesn't
be. Yeah.
necessarily mean that you're there. I'm not saying it doesn't exist,
Mhm.
because that I would be lying, because the work we do just proves that it does.
Mm.
I'm just saying sometimes when it's someone who is good, maybe they didn't believe themselves that they were worthy, and this is why it happens. And this is how we have spirits that are grounded and stuck.
Fear.
Yeah, it's
Right.
fear of being not worthy, or whatever their religious
Well,
upbringing
it's your
is.
religion
And
that conditions you to think that there's a
yes,
price to pay if you step out of bounds, right?
yes.
And some people think, I'll take my chances and stay here. It's not worth
Yeah,
it.
I
So,
don't
yeah.
I don't believe the 10 Commandments exist. I'm just saying, because I've broken a few of them. But anyways,
Okay. So
I'm
Well,
here
you
to
know,
live.
there's 17. If you break apart the 10 and you
Oh,
look, there's more like 17.
do
So
any of them cancel the other ones out?
no,
were
but
they
it's
just
kind
trying to do like a double question in one line? Is
oh
that
yeah,
what it is? Like
sorry.
a double statement? Is that what it is? It's like,
I don't know. But yeah, I
um,
mean, I'm not saying I don't believe in them. I'm
so-
obviously joking around. Okay, Chris Bob says, do you feel that light workers who have accepted the divine are given the blessing and guidance to help others?
I think that there is that is true. I
Mm.
think the more that they get out of the way of themselves, the more
Right.
selfless they become, the more likely that is. If they cling to their own ego, and then the light gets filtered through themselves. I mean, it gets
Mm.
filtered through us anyway, but
Yep.
because we can't help, because we're human.
Mm.
But if they're willing to step aside, then yes, absolutely. If they're not willing to step aside, well, the light still comes through them, but it's
Mm.
manipulated by their own desires and their own selfishness.
You have
And
to
I
basically be a service to others,
yeah,
not service to self. And then I think that makes all the difference. Serve. It's servitude in the end, but
it-
Yeah.
to
yep,
others, right?
right,
If-
exactly.
I
Yeah.
also believe that if you're really interested, just to rewind just a little bit on past lives, if you dig deep enough in a meditative state, and sometimes we don't pay attention to little key things that are happening either
Mm.
in our day-to-day lives. We're often given signs as to why we're here, or why, we're living a certain path,
Mm.
and how we got here. And you just have to trust yourself, I believe, anyways, because most of my past lives have come on their own. I've never been
Memories.
regressed. Yeah,
No,
I've
we
never
hold
been
your
regressed.
memories.
And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe that. I believe there's familiarity, and we tend to dismiss it rather than really take a look. Thank you, Cece.
Takes about.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
totally agree with your statement, Michelle DeRoche.
All
Serve
right.
and help others. And can I just give her a quick plug?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Corinne is the author of That Moment, short stories, all inspirational and true short stories of people all over the world. So go check her out. Her book's really, really good. I've often given it as a gift to people who are going through really tough times.
There we go. So next, where do you want to go from here? Take the reins.
Well, I can go back and pick us up where we left off, which was looking at all these human beings on earth with a little golden sparkle inside their hearts.
Mhm.
And I could see my parents' faces in particular. And I since the last time we talked, I think, when did we talk last?
December. I believe.
December. My dad had just died, and I don't know if
Oh,
I
yeah.
probably
Yeah.
told you that, but
Yeah.
maybe I did.
Yeah, I don't
So
remember.
when this experience happened, and he was in his 90s, They were, I guess, in their 50s, maybe even 40s. I don't really. I'd have to look that up. But I could see their individuals' faces and their suffering that they had in the live time of looking at Earth. But I could also see the accumulation of their suffering for the loss of my sister. And
Mm,
I could see these two parallel lives for both of them. I could see their lives without me, and I could see their lives with me
mm,
alive. Without me
mhm,
dead, with me alive, and I could see the amount of suffering that they were going to have in both of these scenarios, choices put in front of me. But I also could see at the end of their lives, at both of these tracks, with and without me, I could see that they were going to be in the wellness of being. I I,
mm,
I was overwashed as I watched this with universe upon universe upon universe of timeless love that was poured down into me and told to me that I was beloved. I'd always been beloved, and that this wellness of being was eternal, always was, always will be. I was always safe. I was always beloved, and that this was true of every human being, and that because this was true of all of us, that my parents would be in a state of well-being when they died. And so why don't you just stay here,
mm.
because they're going to be here in a wink of an eye, because now you know, Peter, that that life is a flash, poof, and
Right.
it's over. So if you just wait a moment, their lives will be over, and they'll be here, and they'll be in the wellness of being. But I could also see their suffering, and I thought to myself, well, if it's only a flash, if life is a flash, then why don't I just go back and ameliorate their suffering by not having them lose a child? And God said, okay, um, time to come home. But if you want to do that, I said, well, if I go back there, can I come back here? And the voice said, yeah, you can come back to this fullness of the wellness of love. And I said, well, that I choose my life, and you won't choose your life, it said to me. And you won't live your life. You won't live
Mm.
your life, it said to me, and sent me back. And as I went back, I took on more density, and I was presented with a million different possible openings into the same body, but a different life inside that body. And they were all
Oh.
sort of gradated. In the very center of it all was a beam of like white, super white laser light that came from the outside and entered into it. There's all of these openings, these like individual doorways, a million of them, and they sort of graduated out from the intense light, less light, less light, less light, less light, less light. And as I was flying toward this, being thrown out, the voice said to me, choose. But it also said to me, choose the light, but make your choice. And I
Right.
was like, I didn't want to choose the intensity of the light,
Right.
because I didn't want to lose myself. So I chose some measure of my own self. A little,
Mhm.
I wanted some autonomy, and I wanted some light, and so I was kind of off to the side. And once I
Mm.
made that choice, I went through that doorway. And once I was inside that doorway, I saw all of these probabilities of my life, shown all these a million probabilities on this one path, and how that this one path, if I continued to lean into the light in my lifetime, would lead me closer to the light, from this path to the lower path to the closer path to the closer path. So it wasn't as if this path was permanent. It was but it was the doorway I entered. And so as I flew down this tunnel of compression, I got smaller and smaller and smaller until I was outside my body, and it felt like the angel was like I had become an ice screw. And ice screws are hollow. They kind of look like Archimedes screw. You remember Archimedes screw from high
Mhm.
school, right? And they're hollow. And so I felt like I was being screwed back into my heart
That's
very
crazy.
painfully.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy.
and and which is why I never talked about it, because it sounds crazy when you talk about it.
Yeah.
So I kept it a secret for 20 years, because
Mm.
it sounds nuts. And so
Yeah, you think you just
Sounds
like jump right
painful.
in there and, the divine being, I'm just gonna gently put you
It's
back in there. No, you're
what
gonna feel this
you're
one.
gonna feel this way, and the first thing I
Yeah.
experienced was only suffering. So I'm in this body that's full of pain, like
Yeah.
everything hurts, and
Right.
now I'm put back in the side of this body, and so I awaken from no suffering, from a place where there is not even like oh, we don't have any suffering here, but that the word doesn't exist.
Right.
There's only wellness. There's no opposite of wellness. And so all of that had been forgotten by me. And now I'm inside of all of this suffering, and it's just this rack of pain. And my brain slowly comes back online. And as it comes back online, everything hurts more and more. And I begin to hear sound, and I hear this noise, and I open my eyes, and I see this thing, moving, and I hear this noise, and I kind of wake up, and this thing is pulling me up, and it's Tim, and he's kind of lifting me up, and he's screaming at me, "You were dead. You were dead. If you die, I was going to die." And he was crying, and he lost his, I died, and he lost his composure. And once I'm back, and he's like, and he's talking to me, and he's like, "You were dead." And I don't even have any idea who I am. I don't know his name. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what this is. What am I inside of? Where am I? What happened to me? And he's talking to me, and eventually he gets me to pull the rope, and I pull the rope, and it comes free on the first pull. And we descend, and we get in the tent, and we self-treat for hypothermia. And then we get in the car, and we self-treat for hypothermia. And at some point after dawn, the warden shows up and asks if we were the boys on the mountain. We said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, I came to see, we had to get the helicopter to recover your bodies."
Well, I would have to agree with him. It definitely would look that way from his point of view. I mean, who survives that?
It was just crazy. And Tim, okay, so Tim was an atheist, and so on the drive up, we had an agreement. One of the subjects he would not talk about was religion or spirituality. So I decided, I'm sitting in the car, and he's driving the car. I'm like, what just happened to me? Who am I now? And everything to me looks like it's made out of cardboard. Everything looks two-dimensional, black and white. It's like an old Mickey Mouse cartoon with flicker in, it flickers in the light. Everything just looks totally fake to me. And I thought, I can't talk to this guy about this. I don't even know what happened to me.
Yeah. Wow.
And so then I became an entirely different person.
I think you would have to. And if you didn't, it would be an injustice to your experience.
Probably, yes. I don't know a single NDEer who came back the same. If you died and left your body, you come back somehow different. Even if you popped out on the street corner, you get hit by a car, you pop out on the street corner, you're standing there outside your body watching the EMTs work on you. They give you the old paddles, you pop back in again. Forevermore, even if you never even went to the light, you now know you are not your body.
No, no, you don't. You don't. I know. I had a few of them, so I'm well aware of that. You come back different. I came back stronger in my abilities, and I knew then and there that I had to use them for service. I wasn't to hide them or cover them up, and it didn't matter what anybody thought or said. I didn't care anymore. It was just about what I was here to do.
Well, in that way, we were a little different, Amelia. I hid for 20 years. I didn't actually stop them from coming out. I used them all the time. I was a different person. My eccentricities were apparent to everybody.
But it was a different time, Peter. When it happened to me, we're talking 2012. Was the last few.
It was a different time.
It was a different time. I already had access to the internet and to information and to, learning and connecting. It was a whole different time. When I was younger, I dismissed it and just believed that, I just wasn't well and nothing I saw or felt was real.
Wow.
So I understand that. It's all about when it happened to you. I think if you had that, and I pray you never have that experience again, but I think if you had that experience in the last 10 years, it would have been different. You may have been talking about it, but I believe this is the way it's supposed to be. You were meant to endure and understand and ponder it for all of these years before sharing it with the world, and being positive and sure in yourself is what allows others to accept and honor your experience.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's exactly how it went. I spent 20, 30 years in self-integration and
Yeah.
research and practice and meditation.
Mhm.
And I did die again. I died in 2015
Yeah.
of a heart attack, and it was
Oh my
completely
God.
different in
Different.
my response. I was the next morning I'm in the ICU, and my family's there, and I'm like, "Hey, I died yesterday."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yay! 2 for
I was,
2.
Hey, guess what?
I know.
Woo!
It's like,
I get points, freaking flyer.
for me, I found out that there
Yeah.
were 3 flat lines, and I'm like, that's because I kept trying to stay.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, you need to go back. I'm like, what? Then they pulled out the big guns and brought my mom in at the end. It's like,
Yeah.
you need to go back. You have a kid.
You
You
listen to
know,
your mom.
absolutely. But the first couple times, my experiences were nothing like people talk about. I didn't see that whole tunnel of light and everything, but I did feel that whole feeling of
Mm,
love and everything. And I
mm,
was happy.
mhm.
I felt good. I didn't want to leave. So I get that. I'm just going to read off. Chris Bobs asks, do you feel certain people are purposely placed here by the divine to carry out the divine's plan?
Mhm.
Yes, I'm one of those people, but I don't think it's a plan. Like it's more like maybe this isn't a good analogy, but you can make in war all plans go awry. So you make a plan, and then everything you can't follow the plan, but you had a plan, and you go ahead as if there's a plan, but there might not really be a plan anymore because everything changed. But I feel
Mhm.
like I know the very. So what happened the next day? I'll tell you how I know this is that on the way on the drive back to Bozeman, we ended up driving on the wrong side of the road for a period of time, and I convinced Tim that we're on the wrong side of the road and we missed a head-on collision. And then I fall asleep, and then we speed through a town and we get arrested. We get put in jail, and we have to pay our way out of jail. Then we pay our way out of jail, and I fall asleep again, and Tim's still driving. And then I see a car, that we're on the wrong lane again, and I jerk Tim's wheel. Only we weren't in the wrong lane. We go off to the side of the road, and we come back. We miss the front end of a semi by 6 inches, and we slam into the rear wheels of the semi and total the car. And so the next morning, after you can read about what happened in the book, but the next morning,
Mm.
we took the money that we had left, and Tim took a bus with the skis back to Bozeman, and I hitchhiked. And as I'm standing out at dawn with my little sign that says Bozeman, I'm somewhere in Alberta. I have this interior experience of the divine, and it's constant, calling my name. Like I can always hear my soul name being spoken to me, and part of the spokenness to me is the giving of me a task, and my task is to be a messenger of the divine. But I am so frustrated, I'm so angry at this, that I felt like I had agreed to come back, but I didn't know that it was going to be the way it is. That I felt like I'd been tricked. I didn't read the fine print of the contract, that it was ugly here and it
Yeah,
was painful here, and I
yeah.
didn't think that I was going to have to experience that. And so I decided, and plus all the words were taken from me. How do you talk about the thing that's ineffable? You can't.
Mhm.
Mm.
So I spent a lot of those 20 years trying to find language to think about what happened to me, to give it some sort of construct. Um, but I've always known that I came back as a messenger of the light, always. And not my words, but the divine presence itself is really my task in life is to try to, which is what everybody's really is anyway, is to
Mm.
bring the divine presence here, not without filter. Just let
Mm.
heaven be here now and live inside of this thing. And that's my purpose. So yes, I think that there are people who come back with purpose. I don't know if I'm fulfilling my purpose in the exact way that the divine plan was, because I have choice, I make
Mm.
decisions, but I also know that all of the probabilities that I saw in my life remain as probabilities until I make a decision on them, and the world around me, the people around me impact my decision, and then they become actualities. So I could have been So yesterday I could have turned left or I could have turned right. But as I was turning, I wanted to go left on my bike. But as I was going to go left, a car came and I decided I better just go right. And so I went right instead. It's a minor decision that I made, but it changed the direction of my ride.
The ripple effect. People don't realize the ripple effect is so minute. Wayne Mallows is a friend. Aha, yes, that dastardly fine print. I too was bamboozled.
Yes, I'm glad to.
He had
Wayne,
a crazy
thank you.
experience. Oh my God, he had a crazy experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you've integrated Wayne.
He'll tell you, he's like,
Well, if you ever want to talk about it, I had to integrate on my own over all these 20 years, and I went to graduate school and studied contemplation, mysticism, so that I could use other people's skills, so I could learn from other people, and maybe I could, at least talk to you about it. I don't know.
Oh yeah, you'd love his
that would
story.
be good.
You would love his story.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
That would be good for him.
Oh yeah, there you go. We'll connect you guys up. I'll get you each other's emails, and it's quite a story. It really is. I've never heard of an NDE like it personally.
No, and he's also an author.
Also an
Nice.
author. Yeah.
The more of us that write, the more people that know about it, the more people that know about it, the more people talk about it, the more it become normalized in society, the more we can talk about all these other mystical experiences that we have.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically you had to educate yourself on how to integrate and get back into the game of life, I guess is the only way to put it, because my gosh, there's a lot of twists and turns in your journey, man.
Well, I totally gave up my future. I not only became a different person, I went back to Boston again, and all my life I'd been working I was an English major, but I was also an artist, and I was moving toward architecture, the family business. Dad was the president of the Architecture Association in Massachusetts.
Wow.
Wow.
My favorite state on the planet, just saying.
Yeah.
Love Boston.
That's
I miss it so much because of the pandemic. I was going every year. I love it.
I'll come back. Come to Maine.
I will. Absolutely.
North Boston.
Yes.
So I became such a different person that I picked up a pencil when I was a kid. I drafted in my father's office. I sat at his desk. I was working in construction for years, so as a college student, so that I could know how to put buildings together and work with the guys and the plumbers and electricians and the contractors. And then I was off to graduate school to join the family firm, and I completely trashed it. My whole lifetime of preparation gone. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And my dad's like, what?
Huh? What happened exactly on that mountain?
What are you talking about?
What did you just say to me?
Right. And and you're gonna do what? You're gonna get what kind of degree? What are you gonna do with that thing? English degree was bad enough. What are you gonna do with that?
Yeah,
especially because he had set you right up, right? Like he had the business and Boston and Massachusetts have such amazing architecture. They really stand behind the old and the antique. They preserve everything. They stand behind that history. But you were chosen for something else. And
so I when I was applying for grad schools, I went and I interviewed at the schools he asked me to anyway, and I got into them. And I was like, Dad, I just can't do this. I'm doing this other thing, and so I became a very different person than I would have been, and I've lived a very different life. And part of so coming around to hiding, living under a basket, and to use the biblical language, right. I went into Christianity as a language structure because it was the dominant culture of Boston. Heck, it's Irish Catholic, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So, and I knew enough. I learned enough about religion, that mysticism exists in all religions, and that it was going to be easier for me culturally and also scholastically if I focus in the context of the religious mystical tradition in which I was raised, as opposed to trying to become a Sikh or becoming a Hindu, a Sanskrit, and new mythologies, when really all mythologies whether they're in the Vedas or the Upanishads or in the Bible, are all metaphors and symbols and myths that explain the unexplainable. They're all multiple layer things, and every mystic uses the same tools: simile, metaphor, myth, and symbol. So I went into Christianity and pursued that career. Meanwhile, so I did 20 years in the pulpit all around New England, at least northern New England and Connecticut. And but meanwhile, I figured that no one would suspect me. I felt like I was a secret agent in plain sight. So I was living a mystic's life, although I never told anybody about my near-death experience or my other mystical experiences. I continued to do my scholastic research, reading all the Nag Hammadi texts and the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Upanishads and the Vedas. I read all these other materials, and I practiced my centering prayer, meditation, and my Kriya Hatha yoga. And it was part of my job.
Right.
It's like
mystic. Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously it's something that's, been very rewarding for you because it keeps you on your journey. We'll get another comment up there.
Yes, and then we'll have to take a station ID.
We
Chris
shall.
says, I have been told to take a different route home. If I wouldn't have listened, I would have been involved in an accident that happened where I would have been. See, that moment. Just saying, that moment. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Amelia, go.
Yes, you're listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and myself, Amelia Pisano. Tonight, our returning guest, and we hope continues to return, Peter Panagore. I'm not going to do the Italian pronunciation.
Yeah, she was practicing it on me.
NDE experience. Yes, I want to make everything Italian. I can't help it. We are streaming right now live on YouTube, UFO Paranormal, International Public Radio, UFO Gods, and ET Radio, as well as all of our Facebook group pages, Canada's Most Haunted, home of Michelle DeRoche, and of course, us, The Outer Realm on Facebook. A huge thanks to award-winning composer, Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, aka Justin Snicker, for our fabulous intro and outro. You can purchase his music on Amazon and Bandcamp. Find Justin on social media at Facebook and Instagram. And a massive thank you from day one to today, and we think forevermore. We hope and pray. Thank you, Folgers, for sponsoring our show. Without you, we could not do what we are doing. Thank you, Folgers.
They love us as much as we love them.
Yes, we love them. No one loves you more. Just saying. Right. It's in this glass.
And they come from your neck of the woods, Peter. Massachusetts. That's the Folgers family.
That's England
right. To the Massachusetts.
See, all good things come out of Mass. All the good things come out of Mass.
I'll send you all the fun facts. They actually got a mention in Moby Dick. They were whalers.
Yeah, we were schooled. We were schooled. Just saying.
We actually lost the quiz.
We were schooled. Wow. We were schooled by one of our guests. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my God. Can I Google that? Can I Google that? Everything he said, did you know? And I'm like, can I Google that?
The next time you come on, I will see if I can find the information. It talks about them quite a bit. And they were big whaling, harpooning family in Massachusetts.
Yep.
I didn't have any idea.
And Michelle, you gave up that little tidbit, a big, huge tidbit about
Abigail Folgers, victim of Charles Manson. Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
yeah, she was with Sharon Tate, best friends with Sharon Tate. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
we had no idea.
A whole lot of it. I know. We like I said, we were quizzed by a guest on our show, failed miserably, came back stronger than ever on the next show.
So much that she researched between episodes to get back.
I'm like,
and
what
she's
do you
like,
think?
oh yeah,
lose this our sponsor? What the hell? So you see, we're fun. We let our own guests interview us. So.
We did. That was the first mistake. But yes, we let them interview us. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So we'll continue on. So you're on this pretty much metaphysical journey. You are an enlightened soul. You are evolving. You are different density. You are really like climbing this whole ladder that definitely was not in your. Well, I like to think that, we're told the theory that we plan out our lives before we come here. So maybe this was destined for you.
Well, I
Oh.
think maybe because the year before I died, in the same spring break, I went backpacking in Massachusetts
There you go.
on the Appalachian Trail in March. So
Wow.
I went out for an 8-day hike.
That's
Right.
bitter cold.
Well, it was pretty cold. Like I said, I was
Yeah.
an outdoor guy, and
Right.
so I went backpacking on the AT in the Berkshires for a week, and in the middle of this, in a half cabin, which is like a 3/4 cabin. They call it a half cabin. It's a 3/4
Yeah.
cabin.
Right.
And as I fall asleep, I fall asleep, and I had kind of a tough day. So often mystical experiences in my life come after kind of a tough day, and so I
Mm.
had fallen in a stream. I'd gotten very wet. I gotten very cold. We started a fire. I dried my clothes. My hiking partner was already asleep, and I got into my bag exhausted. And as I fell asleep, immediately upon falling asleep, I got pulled out of my body. I got pulled out of my body by this same angelic being who, along the silver cord, pulled up out of myself. I got to watch the half cabin recede beneath me and the trees beneath me, and I got pulled up to sort of the edge of the atmosphere, at which point I left the atmosphere and I entered into the dark void. And so I'm inside of this eternal dark void, and I'm inside the angelic form, this angelic being. It's sort of like a room. It's like I've got a space, a bubble, and I'm inside of this bubble. And as I'm inside this bubble, I see these two hands in this darkness. The darkness becomes two hands, and it pokes inside of the bubble, and they're human hands. And in them, one of them has this vial about this big, glass vial with a cap on it, and it's filled with gold dust. And
Wow.
the other hand takes the cap off, and then this hand disappears, and my hands, my astral hands, they get pushed up into a cup, and I'm not doing this. They're made to go up again, and then the hand pours the gold dust into a stack, and it just keeps pouring and pouring and pouring, like more inside the vial than could actually fit inside the vial. And I've got this huge pile of gold dust in my hands, and the voice, which has no sound, says to me with no words, "This is my gift to you. Now give it away." And it blows a breath, and all of it goes away. And I get pulled back down into my body again. I wake up like, what was that? I fall back asleep again. Same thing happens again, only this time I'm inside of the same sort of bubble, but I'm a column of fire erupts from below me and fills me. It burns inside of me, and it surrounds me, and it shoots out above me, and it's immediately I'm a little frightened by this fire coming, but the voice says to me, "You will not be consumed." And I am not consumed, and I become a column of fire, and then I'm back in my body again. Previous to that, when I was in high school, I took a triple hit of purple microdot, San Pedro cactus, mescaline.
Right.
Why? Well, because I was stupid.
Well, what
Okay,
is that?
I had the suicidal ideation, which because my sister had vanished, my
Right.
family was broken, and I crazily thought I'll take a lot of mescaline, which is not like, I don't know why,
No.
but so
Take one for the team, Peter. Just do it.
so I took a
right?
triple hit,
Wow.
and then I went on this. So I'm on the ski patrol, so I got to work that afternoon. So I'm tripping my brains out, and I'm on the mountain. It's not a mountain; it's a hill. I'm on the hill, and I got my skis on, and I'm on the backcountry. I'm like, okay, I got to calm down. It's hours later. I got to calm down, and so as I'm standing there, I have an end of duality experience where the divine erupts inside of every molecule of all the world, the whole, all the snow, all the earth, all the trees, all the rocks, the sky, the sun, the wind. All of it is in motion, and my own body is all speaking, "I am. I exist. I am the all that is all there is," and it just speaks to me. So I have this revelatory experience, which coincidentally preceded. It was like my end of my senior year, and then my religion teacher, because I went to a Catholic high school, St. John's in Worcester, or Shrewsbury actually, but close to Worcester. um, taught centering prayer practice meditation, which I immediately took to. So I'm kind of going back in chronology here. So I began my meditation practice when I was 5 and 6 years old. I had 2 other mystical experiences. The first
Wow,
one was
that's young.
I know, and
Did you
so
did you ever think like you're just full of these mystical
oh,
experiences? Like,
I more and more after at my NDE, not just before,
Mhm.
like more.
yeah.
So when I was this little boy at 5, we moved in this day where we had moved into this new house, and I was up in this little maple tree, and the leaves were flickering because it was springtime. I was 5 years old. I was on the first branch. It was my
Mm,
first time being allowed to climb on my own up to the first or second branch, and I had this experience where I got mesmerized by the flickering of the spring leaves, and this angel being came down behind me and was as loud as a waterfall, and it pulled me out of myself and brought me into the divine presence, again up in this void inside of
mm,
this bubble. And the darkness came into the bubble in a fluid form of constant change, and it spoke to me directly and told me that I had a deal, that I belonged, that I worked for it, the divine, that I had already made this decision, and that my life was to be as a servant for the divine. And I remember looking down at the little boy in the tree, like, oh yeah, he has no idea about this
mm.
deal that I made.
Poor little dude.
Right.
He's
And
got no
but I was
clue.
like, oh yeah, that's exactly true. I,
Oh,
I I made this deal, and this is who I am, and this is what I'm gonna do.
right.
And back into the body I go. A
So
year
do you
later,
remember that experience like before your NDE? Like
oh,
this stuck
all of
with
it.
you?
Oh
Wow,
yeah,
okay.
all of it.
Wow.
I didn't understand it until
Right.
I looked backward.
Right.
After all these events, especially after the
Right.
NDA, like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what that was all about.
Right.
So when I was
Oh, yeah.
6, Ganesh came to visit me.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. Like,
So
That was on key.
so I'm in my bed. Oh, so this is a terrible day in my life. My brother had been born. He's 5 years younger than me. He was the surprise. He's a
surprise.
wonderful man.
Right.
I talked to him tonight, but he was a surprise, and I didn't like him when he was born because I
Because
was
it
the
was a
baby that
mistake when he was that one. It's like,
right,
no,
right.
you're
And he had
surprised.
to
It
be moved
happened
into
to
my
be a
room.
mistake.
And so
Yeah.
to make up for it, my grandparents bought me a puppy dog on my 6th
Oh.
birthday. And
Oh.
on the day that the week that my brother had moved into my room, my dad accidentally ran over my puppy and killed it.
Oh.
And I was in the room and when this happened, and I watched it from above.
Oh, I'd
And
have been
That would
devastated.
kill me.
so it's this brutal day. And so I get put to bed, and my brother's in the
Oh.
room, and I'm all upset, and my whole world is shattered. And as I'm in my bed asleep on this night, I hear my name being called, and I awaken, and it's like, Peter, Peter, come to me, Peter. And I wake up, and I hear this sweet, sweet voice, but it's not any of my family, but I know this voice.
Mhm.
It's the voice of my beloved. But I'm 6 years old. What do I know? I don't know who
What do you
this is,
know?
but I know
Right.
this voice. And so I sit up
Mhm.
in bed, and as I sit up in bed, I look back, and I'm still in bed. My legs are dangling over the side of the bed, but the little boy is still asleep in bed, and the voice is still calling to me, yes, yes, get up and come to me. And I look around the room, and the room, which had been previously dark, is now sepia tone. I can see everything in the room.
Mm.
Everything is emitting its own light. And I look down at my feet as I stand up. My feet aren't on the floor. I'm floating above the floor, and it's still calling to me. And I go to the door, and I try to open the knob, but my hand passes through the knob, and the voice says, oh, you can't, you don't have to grab the knob, just pass through the door. So I pass through the door, and I go to the top of the stairs, and I look down to the landing on the stairs, and this little tiny elephant. There's a baby elephant, and it's all dressed in Indian clothes with little tiny mirrors all over it. And it's got black eyes, and it's emoting compassion. The whole thing is just love coming off of it. And it speaks to me telepathically, never moves its lips. But it motions me down with its trunk. And I float down the stairs to it, and I'm eye to eye with this little tiny elephant, and as I look into one of the dark eyes, it's like blackness. I shrink down and I fly inside the eye. I fly into the eye. Now I'm inside of eternity, and in this eternity there is only wisdom and compassion. It's just this fullness of bliss, wisdom, and compassion. And then I'm pulled back out again, and I'm back standing, and the elephant says to me, now go down the stairs and outside and look up at the sky. And so I go down the stairs, I float down the stairs, it motions with its trunk, go down the stairs, I go float down the stairs, I pass through the doors, I go out on the porch, I go down the walkway out into the middle of the road, and it says to me, and it's still with me, although it's on the stairs, it's also with me. Look up at the sky. I look up at the sky. I look up at the stars. There are 10 million stars up there. And then suddenly I am whoosh, I'm transported into infinity. I see the expanse of infinity inside, like inside underneath the universe, and it scares me. I am terrified by this immensity of it. And immediately I'm back in bed again. And now I'm in I wake up, I'm in my dark room, my heart's pounding because I had been afraid, but I still can hear the elephant sweetness in sort of my memory. And so I search the house for this little tiny elephant. I go down in the scary basement and in the cellar. So my whole life.
Think he presented itself to you as an elephant because you would receive it a little better, maybe because you were so little?
Maybe. I don't. What did I know from Hinduism?
Animal.
Nothing.
Yeah, or maybe it's a spirit animal for you at the time.
It could be. I don't know. I still don't know why it came like that. But my whole life has been on this trajectory. You asked me originally, and so I didn't realize until I died the first time. Looking back over my shoulder, I began to understand the gold dust. That's selflessness. You get this wealth to give away. It's not yours. You don't get to keep this. If you keep it, you lose it.
Right.
And this being consumed, not being consumed, was the struggle of my life. Not choosing to go into the white light when I died became this. The thing I didn't want to have happen was to be consumed. I wanted me. I wanted myself. And so after I died, I had this conflict of my only desire was for the oneness of being. My big regret was coming back to life. All I wanted to do was dig my way back to heaven through my practices, and I'm praying for my death every day, and trying to resist the compulsion to speak about this thing that had no words and didn't want the job. I didn't want the job at all. And I found that over my lifetime, through my continued interior practices, that I created a larger and larger space for the divine to live inside me. And eventually, as a result, through other mystical experiences and my second death as well, I became much more integrated in the world, and I finally allowed myself to be consumed. And I found that in being consumed, I was not consumed. It was just the opposite. Instead of I spent all the meditation practices are the practices of if you die before you die, then when you die, you will not die. So if you die the little death on a regular basis, if you die to your egoic self on a breath by breath meditative basis, when you die, you're already there. And so the result of all of that was sort of a thinning of the veil around me, more mystical experiences, and finally allowing myself to be consumed. And now I'm doing the work that I'm doing is with imperfections and flaws and all the rest of it. But so is everybody like that? I don't know. I know I am, and I kept it a secret because, well, for a bunch of reasons. I didn't want people to think I was a kook.
Right.
But even though I kept my mouth shut, it poured out. I made eccentric decisions on a regular basis. Yes. Everybody what's up with Peter?
Somebody dropped Peter on his head.
Who did he see on that mountain?
Right.
What actually happened?
It's almost like there's a knack, leaving your body, or you're just traveling dimensionally, perhaps, or interdimensionally. You're just going out there, and you're just communicating with all these beings. Maybe it's not necessarily all in this time or space. Like you're just,
Oh, I don't think it is.
yeah. I
This is
think you're
just I'm just
gone.
passing through here.
Yeah.
This is my
Yeah.
I came
Yeah.
back very clearly understanding that none of my previous lives or this lives is me.
Right.
I am inhabiting this body, and
Mhm.
I'm a passerby, and I've seen myself in other mystical experiences. I've seen
Mm.
the size of myself as the immaterial nature of how little that I matter. I
Mm.
matter in terms of the universe. I don't
Like,
matter at
you're
all.
just a little grain of sand on a
Nothing.
very big beach, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm very
Yeah.
comfortable with that
Right.
because
Right.
of the love.
Right. Yeah. It's just unconditional, and it just envelops you. I think this is maybe what people need to have an understanding, because life is about vibrations and frequencies, and you need to elevate yourself to that point. And maybe, you were shown that from early on, but you rebelled and you do all these naughty things.
Oh, I'm
And
like a
and they're like, what are you doing? Is that what we taught you? That's not part of the deal. So you're just like that toddler that they have to keep reeling in. So
I was the kid. Oh, don't go up to the edge of the cliff. Oh,
there's a
you
cliff.
mean like this?
Yeah. How
Like, there's
far
a
does it
cliff?
go?
Oh,
Right.
yeah. What cliff? How did I not know about this cliff? It's like, no, for sure. But I mean, I think that's part of life, it is experiencing, it's making mistakes and seeing what you can take out of it. But you just seem to have an unusual amount of experiences. I mean, the NDEs, a lot of people have NDEs, but you seem to remember them in great detail. To me, beyond just the motion of what happened, but really the feelings, the envelopment, gosh, like everything, all the details.
Well, I spent for one thing, they're as vivid to me today as the day that they happened.
Right.
For another thing, I keep remembering more about it.
Mhm.
I also know that I only brought back a small percentage of it. So there's much more that could be revealed to me if I dive into it.
But
But
do you want
also,
to dive into it? Like, I want to know everything.
I am obsessed.
Say, okay, good. That's not just me being that person.
No, I'm completely obsessed with it because it's who I am and
Okay.
what my home is. It's like not
Yeah.
being able to remember your name. What's my name?
Right.
What's my name? What's my name? Where am I from? Where am I from?
Quit scrubbing my memory.
Right,
Dang
exactly.
aliens. Yeah,
And
for
diving
sure.
into it was the only stability that was the other thing too, is I dove into it so hard because as Amelia was saying, when this happened to me, there was no internet. I had
Right.
no idea what happened to me. All I knew is that when I was meditating, because I'd been meditating at this point for 5 years or 4 years or something like that, that inside of the meditation, I found stability. I found
Mm,
quiet. I found myself. And so that
right.
became my inward journey became the dominant factor in my life.
Right.
And the result
Right.
of that, of the inward journey being the dominant factor, is, well, in combination to this living as a non-attached person. I don't live detached. I don't have personality disorder detachment.
Mm.
I live non-attached because I know all of it's fake. It's real as far as it
Right.
goes,
Right.
but it's
But you don't attach to things or people. It's just a passing moment.
it's all passing, and
Right.
which makes me a lot more fun, I think.
Mm.
I think I'm a fun guy as a result.
Absolutely. That's why
But
we just keep bringing him back.
right, but I also think that it gives me it's given me courage.
Mm.
I'm not afraid of dying, and I've been part of my career. So being a town minister sounds like this, sort of milquetoast job. That is not the way it went for me.
No, it's not.
There's been
No.
I've been involved in an extraordinary amount of violence, and not just violence against me, but violence
Mm.
against people that I've worked with
Mhm.
in desperate, dangerous situations, and worked with the police, worked with domestic violence, sat on the domestic violence homicide review panel,
Oof,
was
That's
such a
involved
tough.
with
tough position.
decapitations and murders and
Mhm.
arsons and all sorts of crazy stuff,
Mhm.
but all because I know where I'm from, and you can't kill me. You can kill my body, but you can't kill me.
Now that's gotta
Um,
hurt the heart when you see situations like this and you've evolved to the point that you have. I mean, I'm nowhere near like that, but my God, when I see pain somewhere, especially with animals or trees or the environment or people, obviously,
yep,
it hurts my heart to the fiber.
yep.
That's
That
got to
was
be much more intense for someone in your situation.
well. I don't know. Maybe it is. But I know that I remember the day that I decided to finally tell my dad. There was this
Hmm.
piece of property in our city that my dad was looking at. It was a large piece of property that he was looking at. Someone was buying the property, and they were looking at my dad to build like a mall, right?
Right.
And so my dad sent me out to survey this, not to like measure it, but to look over the land and find out get an idea what's on the land. And it was
Mhm.
I don't know, 50 acres. And I'm
Wow.
walking through this land, there's birds. This is a year after I died. There's birds and butterflies and grasshoppers
Mm.
and it's like everything is idyllic. And I thought, I cannot kill this. I
Mm.
can't I can't participate. I
Right.
can't do this.
Right.
It hurts me and I went back and I said, Dad, I I have to tell you, I am not going to be an architect. I cannot do this.
Mm.
I can't cause this kind of pain. And he's
Mhm.
like, pain? What are you talking about?
It's a bad piece of land, Dad. Don't
It's
do it.
right, right.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's what I would have said. Don't do it. It's loud.
no,
There's bodies under there.
By the concrete
there's a
parking lot
mall
down the
there
road.
right now. Right now, there's a mall there.
Dang it.
You
Yeah.
know,
Wait, it's not in Peabody, is it?
no, it's not in
Because I
Peabody,
went
but
to
it
that
could be.
mall and it
It
was
could be.
weird.
It could be in
I
Peabody.
loved it, but I got to tell you, the energy around there's a little strange.
Mm.
Yeah, so I
So how
hear
did he
you about
react
the
to
suffering. I
like
do.
this? Did he look at you like, "What's wrong with you? What happened to you?" Like,
Well, yeah, they did. But here's the thing, years and years and years go by, decades actually, and maybe about 5 years ago, they lived on Cape Cod. So I go down to the Cape and I'm visiting my parents, and I say to them, and now, so after I came out to them, so I come out with this book. I tell my wife on the day after we got married. I know in the book it says the night before, but I should have checked with her. It's like I didn't.
yeah.
She might not have gone through with the wedding, is what I think that if I had told her. And gulp, swallow. And but when I finally told my parents, they didn't believe me. Nobody believed me. My family didn't believe me. Nobody believed me. They're
That
like,
had to have been pretty heart-wrenching.
oh, well, it was terrible. And so a
Yeah.
long time goes by. I finally published this book. It finally gets in print, and nobody's ever read it in my family, which is fine. I don't.
Mhm.
But they finally came to understand that maybe I was telling the truth. And so finally years go by, and I say to my dad and mom, so remember that summer that I came back from Montana, and I had a stutter too, because the car wreck gave me a stutter. So
Mhm.
I come home and I'm stuttering, and you remember that summer? And my mom would say, I remember that summer. You built a garden for us and we didn't even ask you. And I said, so what was there something different about me? And they said, well, we talked about it. Your mother and I talked about it, and we realized that you were, not that you weren't when you were a boy, you were a very compassionate boy, unusually so. But when you came back from Montana, you were just even more than we expected. We were just kind of shocked at your behavior and the way how kind you suddenly were.
Right.
And so even though I tried to hide it,
Mm-mm.
yeah, I couldn't. And then am I talking too much?
No, go ahead.
Oh my God, no.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we're coming to towards the end of the show, so
we
get it
are.
all out there. It's
So
like, yeah.
so when the book comes out, the book came out, this is 2015, the first speaking engagement I had on this national tour I ended up was in the church that I was an associate minister outside New Haven. I got recruited into this to be this associate minister, but this excellent guy named Todd King, who is still a dear friend of mine, who's the senior minister. He was wonderful for me. But I go back to this church to speak on a Saturday night and talk on a Sunday morning. And on Saturday night, the place is packed. It's balconies. There's 200, 300 people there. Because I was the young boy done well. And the youth group members who had been a member of my youth group when I was a kid, now they're all lawyers and doctors. Wow. And there's like 8 of them show up, and we have a talk afterwards. I haven't seen these guys since then. And one of them says to me, Peter, we knew you weren't telling us something the whole time you were there. Your behavior was so different. You were barefoot in the church. You were working in the homeless shelter. You were diffusing violent situations with peaceful action, and all these things that we knew that there was something that you were hiding from us. We couldn't figure out what it was, but we knew that you were a different kind of person. And so what I mean to say by that is that no matter how much I tried to hide it and never spoke about it, it came out in every single aspect of my life, and it still comes out in all my aspects of my life. Right. It's today out on my bike, the same kind of deal with this friend of mine. He's like, "Oh, Peter, you're such a nut."
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, Fred.
Same guy.
Right.
Yeah.
We all know that. We already know that, right?
Right.
I love you anyway, brother, kind of thing.
It's like,
Yep.
Yeah. But that's okay. That's okay.
It is. I live with it now. I've accepted it. The work I'm doing now is a result of dying again and these other mystical experiences that helps me integrate. I didn't integrate on my own. It wasn't just my meditation. It was the divine grace of transport that healed me, that made me able to be more open and function in the world with more authenticity and truth. Not trying to pretend, masking myself anymore.
No, it's good being real. That's just the best way to be. So as we near the top of the hour, tell everybody how to find you. Promote.
I'm at peterpanagore.love. That's where you can find all of my links. Instagram. I have a YouTube channel on Sunday mornings called Not Church. It is mystical.
I love it.
mystical theology, no doctrine, no dogma, no Bravo Sierra, because they won't let me swear on YouTube. No. And it is this week. We're going to be looking at the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene.
Oh, really?
Like that.
What time?
That's at 10 a.m. Eastern live. And so here's very quickly. For the entire time I was a minister, I never taught a Bible study, which is like part of the job, like in the job description. Right. I never, ever taught one because I was afraid I was going to start talking, because Jesus sounds like a near-death experiencer to me. He is not the guy that they tell you he is. He's a totally different dude.
Right.
But I'm at peterpanagore.love, and I help near-death experiencers, mystics, and spiritual experiencers reintegrate or integrate with their experience or experiences. I help people unpack what happened to them so that they can gain a better, clearer understanding. I do a lot of counseling. Right. That's also at peterpanagore.love. You can book me just to have a conversation as well.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, people.
Oh, yeah. International Audible best-selling book. And it's been picked up.
Bring that into the camera, Peter?
Sure,
I will. I'll bring both of these in. This is
Thank
this
you.
is the Audible International Bestseller, and it's been optioned for a film. I've been working on it for 2 years. I've got 3.5 chapters left. With these people, I can't believe I'm working with them. One of them is a near-death experiencer.
Nice.
And they are well-known producers in Hollywood. And this one is a devotional book. I had a TV show for 15 years. And here in Maine and New Hampshire, and it's 2 minutes for God, named because I had 2 minutes in the morning every day on 2 NBC stations to tell an inspirational story of hope.
I love that.
And it's It's not like any other devotional you've ever read. It's through the lens of near-death experience. All of them at Amazon, all over the world.
That's fantastic.
Excellent.
Thank you like, so much for coming on. I mean, I think I'm just going to fast forward in time a little bit here as to your next date with us. The next date with us chicks, I think is, where am I? Why have I lost everything? Oh, September 29.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you. So
Right before spooky month.
Yeah. So
what did you say, Amelia?
Right before spooky month.
Oh, spooky month. Oh, so Halloween's my favorite holiday.
You fit in with Michelle. Mine's Christmas. I can't lie. I do. Halloween comes in a close second, but mine's Christmas. I love giving. So Christmas gives me the opportunity to give without being looked at as a weirdo.
I do the same thing with it Halloween.
Yeah, you're funny. I get a Starbucks gift card. Happy Halloween. I'm like,
no, that's right. That's how it goes. Right, gift of giving. That's right.
She does.
But thank you so much for joining us again. It really was enlightening to say the least. Here we go. There we go.
So when I'm layering my lasagna, I'm going to have to tune in on Sunday.
There we go.
Lasagna.
Yes, it's Easter Sunday, so
lasagna Sunday.
Yeah. It is.
No turkey or ham here. Sorry, Italian. It's lasagna.
Hey, lamb. In my world, it's lamb.
Yes. My mom never liked it, so we never saw it on the table. Thank God, because they're just furry, little fuzzy, little creatures. I can't.
Well, it was a Greek thing.
Yes, it's an Italian thing as well at Easter. Just we never did. But yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on, Amelia and Michelle.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Very, very much.
Can't wait. I can't wait. Thank you for sharing everything, like your entire being with us and exposing yourself like that with us and our audience. We adore you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both. And I want to say peace to Wayne because he said hi, thank you to me. So, hey, Wayne.
He did. Yes. Everybody's saying thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Wayne's kind of like another host tonight. Good night, everybody. See you all tomorrow.
He's our third host. Yes.
Okay, Wayne.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Have a good night. Have a great weekend.
Good night.
Well, guys, we have come to the end of another fantastic segment, as always. I mean, I have to say, as always, this one is just phenomenal. We always have such an amazing time when he joins us. So big thank you to him. Big thank you to Folgers Coffee. Always. Big thank you to Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker. We do a small announcement here, actually. A new venture for Amelia, for myself, for the network. I'm sure some of you guys have been seeing some stuff on Facebook about Team Templar North America, because we know that's like near and dear to somebody's heart. We'll leave that right there. And
no, wait, I'm good.
I know, right?
It's backwards. What? It's like an iPhone. It's backwards.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So of course, this is going to be this is something we've agreed to do. I personally have agreed to do media marketing because I've just what I do. And Amelia is going to be doing
social media.
That's right. And grow that page and bring it all out to you guys. This is where the connection is going to be, the real connection between the Knights Templar coming from Europe into North America. And it's not what you think. It's probably better. So watch history unfold. Please go. Wait, what? Tell us. You already know.
We witnessed to it live. Yes.
Yes.
And in the moment.
See us start to post some things. The Outer Realm. I mean, everybody involved here has been on this show. Of course, Amelia and I. We've got Wayne Murphy, who you guys have seen on the show from Team Templar North America. Of course, we all know Sean Williamson. He's been on several times. Hamilton White. Woo, come on. We all know love him, right?
And Chips himself.
Exactly.
No Oak Island references, no.
None.
But thanks for that.
and of course, the network itself is going to be the official network that will be spearheading, just promoting this organization. It's impressive because we've been made privy to some of the studies that have been done that has not been seen anywhere else. It's not recycled information. It's not stuff you've seen on other shows. It's not stuff that you have seen anywhere. And it is pretty mind-blowing to say the least. So all I'm going to say is put your seatbelts on, enjoy the ride, follow along. You like an adventure, guys? We like adventures. So we're all going on an adventure together, I think. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. So with that being said, of course, we'll get back to tomorrow night. Preston Dennett, our dear friend Preston Dennett. And I have to put this up because symmetry.
Yes,
This is crooked. I'm really crooked now. Symmetry. There we go. I feel like a certain game show, huh? Products. So this is going to be an amazing show. Preston is awesome. He's almost just like one of the family by this point. But it is going to be a great experience. This is, based on someone else that we've had, Dolly Saffron, who's been on the show. This is her story. When she told her story on the show, she was basically breaking it to the world, first time ever. Now the book is done, and now the rest of the world will be able to catch up. And it is one heck of an amazing story. So just heads up on that. In the meantime, I think you guys all best behave yourselves until tomorrow, if you all think you can. And we look forward to seeing you all in chat tomorrow, because it's going to be a heck of a lot of good fun as always. So we'll see you all then. And thank you so much for tuning in. Good night.